Hello, everybody, and welcome to the November edition of the EPALE Newscast. I'm Tamsin Rose, and I'm the host of the sessions. So let's start with a quick roundup of news from the EU. The results of the annual Grundtvig Award scheme have just been published. They celebrate innovative projects in non-formal adult education across Europe. And this year's theme, Transforming Lives, Community and Society, inspired 31 applicants. Warm congratulations to the two winners, the EPALE Advancing Digital Empowerment of Libraries in Europe project. They won the Transnational Prize, and the Smart Food Engaging Citizens in Food Diversity project, which won the National Award. And you can see all of those amazing projects by downloading the booklet and looking through it. Now let's turn to the difficult topic of tech shortages, so talent shortages in the tech sector. And this is a big problem all across Europe. And the OECD has just published a new report, and you can see it on screen. And it is calling for broad multi-stakeholder strategy to support innovative policies. Examples of this could include using a skills-first approach and enabling employers to adapt more dynamically to the evolving technological demands that they experience. The report is also very supportive of individual learning accounts that's being promoted by the EU. And it also recommends that we support and promote micro-credentials as a way forward of strengthening people's talents and skills. Now, let's look at some news from EPALE. We have a great blog post that we would like to share with you, and it's called Digital Literacy and Poverty, Bridging the Gap Between the Adults' Education. Many adults living in poverty experience a huge digital divide, and that affects them in a number of different ways. For example, access to essential services, education, or job opportunities. So please read our blog post to find out more about what can be done to really reduce that digital divide and make sure that people who are on the margins of society have greater access to opportunity. Did you miss the last EPALE online discussion on gender equality in adult learning? If you did, don't worry, you can watch the recording, and the comment section is still open, and we'd love to hear your views and your perspectives. So go ahead and watch it and share what you think. And now I'm going to turn to the main topic of this newscast, which was the amazing EPALE Community Conference that was held just a few weeks ago in Bologna and also online. The title of the conference was Forward, Adult Learning, Igniting Change and Shaping Tomorrow. Now, first of all, we've got a great blog post for you, which summarizes and has some highlights, and that's a real opportunity to find out some of the different points that people found interesting. But we've also got a little video that I'd love to show you because it contains some of the highlights, and this is what you missed if you didn't participate. So let's watch the video. Hello, and welcome to beautiful Bologna.
For me, adult learning is first and foremost a tool of empowerment for teachers and learners alike. And it is so heartening to hear testimonies from educators in adult learning who have found that in teaching, they themselves continue to learn and grow.
Quality adult learning and training, to which you're all contributing, is all the more important in light of the challenges we're currently facing. The transformation of jobs and work, and the green and digital transitions have heightened the relevance of learning throughout our entire lives.
When I think about freedom of expression, I think about the way that it's invoked as a universal concept globally around the world.
We sometimes miss the radical history of adult learning.
AI, our systems are software programs built by people, and the people who build these systems, just like everyone else, has implicit biases and any other type of bias.
We know we have to move faster, but we are often stuck between conflicting agendas, more or less conservative or progressive. So change itself takes time. For many, being confronted with the scarcity of resources makes it difficult to project ourselves in the future, and survival strategies are omnipresent. They make people in situation of vulnerability feel stuck in an ongoing present made of the repetition of the same alienating reality, made of the same patterns, disconnected from their past and their future.
When you encourage yourself to think with no right and wrong, with no space of mistakes. You kind of constantly repeating this process, and these muscles become stronger, so your normal way of thinking is created.
The European Union is a kind of utopian project. And because we lost creativity, we've lost the utopian aspect of it.
The European Union has to be a bit more ambitious in implementing its initial goals. And, you know, the motto of the European Union, united in diversity, right?
We are sometimes cut off of reliable criteria, how to make a plausible judgment that is needed in order to have real knowledge. We need imagination in order to grasp sometimes very complex things. We need imagination to translate the world of complexity into the world of our understanding.
It's been a great event. I've so enjoyed being with you all. Thank you and goodbye. I hope you enjoyed watching that video. Let me now introduce you to Sara Salieri, who was the voice of, she's from the EPALE Central Support Service, and during the conference, she was very much the voice of the community, bringing in their perspectives and what she was seeing online. You know, Sara, just watching that short video again really inspired me. It brought back some things into my mind that really have stuck there since the conference. So just to share a couple and see what you think. Joe was saying, reminded us that adult learning and adult education has been a radical movement, and it's been a movement of empowerment. And he encouraged the adult learning community to be confident and not to be caught up in technological determinism, that the goal is empowerment, the goal is inclusion, and technology, if we can get to grips with it, supports us. It doesn't determine the steps that we take. And I loved when Michelle spoke, I was talking about the tyranny of time, how we experience time, particularly for those living in poverty. It's oppressive because you never have enough time to do anything. And he said the point in the adult learning space is to create protected spaces of deceleration, which give people, push back against the deadlines or the pressures that are not absolutely necessary. And that creates a space for reflection, to breathe, to plan, to strategize, to imagine your life differently. And that was so important. Thinking about AI, the fact that, we need to think about the quality of AI. That AI consumes huge amounts of data, and it consumes everything that's been put out there online. And before we had the internet, what we published, what made it online into or out into the public discourse, was the finest of our thinking and our planning and the results of multiple drafts. And so what we put out there for knowledge was very high quality, and it was robust. And now anyone puts anything out there, what they thought of the cafe last week, it's not thought through, it's not thoughtful, and yet that's all consumed and goes into the machine and is then what is used to generate output. And she also mentioned that we've now reached the point, because AI consumes everything and we're using AI to generate material, that AI is eating itself, that we're feeding into AI as an input stuff that's already been created by AI. And she sort of was talking about that warning, that we need to be aware of that for quality. And finally, I think it was a really important point that we should not confuse freedom of speech from freedom of expression, because freedom of expression is the capacity to fully express and live in a genuine, authentic way your history, your culture, your identity, your experiences, your geography, to really tell your stories. And the risk that if we sort of limit the freedom of expression to just freedom of speech, that tends to be about what happens in the online space, which is largely owned and managed by private actors who set their own rules. And then that can also be another form of exclusion. So those were the things that bubbled in my mind as a result of the EPALE conference. So Sara, how did the EPALE community engage with the conference?
Thank you, Tamsin, for this fantastic roundup of topics which absolutely are still on my mind also. About the EPALE community, the first thing to notice and acknowledge, I think was participation itself. I mean, we had more than 4,000 views. And I also have to say that this figure doubled up just a week after the official end of the conference. It means that people come back to the recordings, and I would encourage also our viewers to come back and watch them, because it's still possible to watch the conference streaming recorded online. And then, as you were mentioning, I was in constant contact with the EPALE community. I was monitoring both the platform and the social media during the 3 days. And I have to say it was wonderful, also energizing, since we were there, working at the organization. Also rewarding to really feel that the community was there. Sometimes, showing their presence, like with hearts and encouraging emoticons and likes, but also with the thank you and greeting, and of course with their very thoughtful and inspiring comments and questions to the speakers, which is really a testimony of how engaged and committed our community is. So this as a very general feeling, but in terms of topics, you were talking, of course, you were mentioning your highlights, and many of the things that you were mentioning, I think, are resonated also with our community, but of course channeled through also their interests and their points of view, which are specific, because of course we know we have a community of mainly of adult educators and practitioners and stakeholders. So of course many questions revolved around education, the educators' identities and their practices, for example, how to reach out to learners to teach specific topics, on coming from, or on how to address a specific target users. And I think that these questions made really a great contribution to the conference, as sometimes they pushed, sometimes they even forced the speakers to be very practical, very concrete, to bring practical examples and practices to the forefront. So I think, for example, something that really stayed also in my mind was Gemma Parado Leon, one of the speakers in the first panel on digital literacy, who was answering to a question on how to engage low-skilled learners, so a very practical thing. And then she shared her own experience as a digital facilitator. And she told us that when a woman arrived and to a class, and she said that she only used the computer to clean it. So she had fear. She was afraid to break it. And so this moment, this very specific moment, this very real moment, sparked something in the educators, and then helped her to find a way to address the issue, to identify the fear posing a problem, and then to address it. So that was very practical, and that was very true. And I think it was, and it came because of one of the community making a question. But I also have to say that the community didn't shy away when they were called upon to step out their comfort zone, for example, to engage with topics which are not often addressed in the educational field, such as freedom of expression you were mentioning before, or when it was a moment to engage into more philosophical discussions, and often also the community was connecting the dots between the different sessions, the different days. For example, exploring the intersection of digital skills, sustainability, social justice, and equity. So that was also amazing, I have to say, to see.
Yeah.
And then maybe as a very final remark, it was something that I would like to bring because it wasn't emerging during the conference. Some of these things, came up, but something that was just happening, let's say, in parallel. Sometimes there were conversations between the users that were stemming from topics addressed in the conference that they took their own way. For example, during the keynote speech picture that you were mentioning before by Michelle Alder Johnson, encouraging to break through temporal tensions. There was an exchange on the different models, the different strategies in European countries on how to find time actually to uphold the learning trajectory. So that was really also very useful exchange, I think, for the community. So yeah, I mean, these are I think main takeaways starting from the
Right.
Mhm.
And of course, we also challenge the audience to calculate their ecological footprint, to think not just about their carbon footprint, but by their ecological footprint. So there were some great things happening. One of the highlights for me was the fact that we had our community heroes present on the first day in Bologna. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, absolutely. That was also fantastic for us because, of course, as a Pale community, a Pale Central Support Service, it was the first time we had the chance to meet in person some of our members. So we selected, together with the national support services, we selected a number of more than 30 members of the community coming from different countries of Europe. We called them the community heroes, which is the name we give to our members who have contributed the most to EPALE. And so they joined us in Bologna, and they attended the opening day of the conference, and they also had a dedicated moment to exchange and to an event in the afternoon. And that was also a very nice experience because at a certain point of this afternoon, they were engaged in these and this team building activity where they had the chance to discuss on specific topics, but also to disclose their multiple identities. And so we discovered that they are educators, but also learners, of course, athletes, parents, heavy metal music lovers. So all these different identities came out, and I think it was a very nice way also to close this fantastic opening day. And I also would like, just as a closing, some of our participants shared their experience with blog posts, and we have a fantastic one, a very personal chronicle of a journey by one of the participants, who is Luis Carlos Callao Pola, that we will share with you in the link section, and I encourage you to read.
Thank you very much. And of course, the community heroes, the stories from the EPALE network are so powerful. I mean, one of the most moving moments in our conference was when we heard from people who work in creative projects, working with prisoners or refugees or really marginalized communities, and sometimes bringing world-class artists in to engage with them. And that's actually going to be something that we also celebrate through the storybook, because that will feature this year's community stories. And that is something that is coming out very soon. And it's going to be the theme of our last newscast of the year that will be coming next month. So everyone should keep an eye out for that. I hope you've enjoyed our quick summary of the conference. It was a really great event, lots of food for thought. So do go and watch the videos, the recordings again, and keep talking. Thank you again. Bye. See you next month.